Good afternoon. Sorry I'm a little late. I got stuck in traffic. We had something's going on the 826. I don't know what. I'm just kidding. It's not the 826. But I had some kind of accident on Lejeune, so sorry I'm a little bit late. But I'm glad that everybody's here. I understand there's all the board members are here. I think some of them are on the phone somewhere. So call this meeting to order. So why don't we stand up and do the Pledge of Allegiance. And Mr. Executive Director, please lead us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can we have a roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Ms. Fano?
Present on the phone, I apologize.
Ms. Gutierrez? Here. Mr. Meyer? Ms. Weinberg? Treasurer Martinez? Here. Secretary Wolf?
Here.
Vice Chair Board?
Here.
Chair Jimenez?
Here.
Forum, sir.
Need approval of the agenda.
Move.
Moved and second. Anybody opposed? Seeing none, the agenda is approved. Declaration of voting conflicts.
Do any members of this board have any conflicts with any items on the agenda?
Okay.
Seeing none, we move forward.
All right. Citizen comments. This is a time for citizen comments. Everybody wants to make any comment on item on the agenda has a couple of minutes. Citizen comment period is open. Seeing nobody come forward, it's closed. Discussion items. Outside council report.
Yeah, it will be presented by Mr. Eugene Stearns, and he's also with Kirk DeLeon, who is co-counsel in this case, but Mr. Stearns will address.
We'll speak into the mic so that the folks on the phone can hear. Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Hi, this is Board Member Luz Weinberg calling in Nevada Country.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I think I recall when it was that I approached you before, and I said that it was my view that this did not present a close question, that the act that was passed by the legislature violated the Constitution and the home rule provision. Specifically, we've of course filed that complaint. The state argued that it was premature because the governor hadn't signed the bill. The judge agreed, which was no surprise. And of course, the state took the position that it was too early. And then as soon as the governor signed the bill, the state took the position it was too late because the agency was abolished. Judge Cooper is, of all the courts I've been in front of, and I've done this for almost 50 years, I don't recall a court that took the time and the energy to read literally everything. Read the pleadings of the parties, read the cases that we all cited on both sides, and then read cases that we didn't cite to make sure that what we were saying at least was supported by the law, to the point that while initially my arguments were swimming upstream because the judge had no experience in home rule, by the second hearing, my contribution was, yes, Your Honor, you're right, Your Honor. Yes, Your Honor, you're right, Your Honor, because pretty much he understood how simple and straightforward the issues are. At one point, the FDOT, my apologies, Mr. Webb, was making the argument that this isn't a home rule act, it's not a local bill. And the judge says, let me read you the title of the bill. This act shall be known as the Greater Miami Expressway Authority. What more do I need to know that it's a local bill? So the judge orally in court last Friday, Friday before last, announced after a lengthy hearing on the motions for summary judgment, announced that he was finding for MDX on count one, which is the issue of the constitutionality of House Bill 385 and those portions of it that purported to abolish this agency, create GMX, and transfer all of its assets and liabilities, at least the liabilities that it wants to take. The judge found that violates the Constitution, violates the Home Rule Charter, and entered orally fairly extensive findings of fact that were consistent with what we had urged them to adopt. We were charged with proposing an order, which we did, which was circulated. We had to run it through the county attorney. The county attorney, and incidentally I should add that Orrin Rosenthal, the county attorney, appeared, if you had followed the hearing, and I think his pleadings were excellent. The argument was excellent. It was, up to that point in time, we were being triple and quadruple teamed. Orrin made up for a whole army. He's an extraordinarily good lawyer and a good person, and his arguments were extremely persuasive. And so the county attorney signed off on the order. We have signed off on it. The state has until tomorrow to comment on it. That goes to the judge on Thursday. And we anticipate, we think it's consistent with everything that the court has found and will be entered. What happens then is the state is, when I say the state, it's FDOT and the Florida House of Representatives are the two parties in the case. And they're going to have to make a decision as to whether or not to appeal. If they file a notice of appeal, they obtain instantly what is known as an automatic stay of execution of the final judgment pending that appellate review. That then shifts the burden to us to file a motion to lift the stay. And the issue there, by the way, is you all know more about this than anybody else would, which is in most instances, for example, if you have a change of power in Tallahassee from one governor to a next, one term ends and simultaneously another one begins. You do that with every legislative body, you do it with every executive office. I have said, and perhaps unkindly, that this bill was written in crayon because it didn't provide any interim procedure. So one agency abolished when the governor signed the bill instantly, but a new one couldn't be created literally for months, leaving the agency in a period of time where there was really no board to be able to make board decisions. And while the professional staff of this agency, as I've come to know them, is extraordinarily competent and able to keep the agency going on a day-to-day basis, as a matter of law and as a matter of fact, this board has enormous responsibility. And there's the time to get a new board appointed, when you think about this, in addition to not having a transition from A to B, to make it worse, the governor signed the bill on July 3rd, the day before July 4th, and two public agencies, TPO and the county commission, that has to operate in the sunshine, unlike the governor's office and unlike the legislature. You can't make decisions literally to snap a finger. You have to have meetings, you have to have hearings, you have to have a process, and it was just physically impossible to do that by July 31st. And of course, as we all understand, August is not a date where any agency, be it in Congress or locally, is doing business. So it left a period where the governor appointed 3 individuals, and of course, Mr. Webb serves ex officio, whether here or at GMX. And as a consequence, you're ending up with an interim period where no one's in charge. And so you can anticipate that the argument on lifting the stay will be addressing that very issue, is what happens in this period. Now, the appeal will be filed in the First District Court of Appeal. We will probably be filing a motion to relinquish jurisdiction for the circuit court to hear the motion to lift the stay. The First District can either hear it itself or send it back to Judge Cooper. I can't predict that outcome. I can predict that they'll probably rule on it quickly. This is a matter of some great public importance. And frankly, I think the problem, and by the way, we've all joked about it, that you know, you got the parents are getting a divorce, and the question is, where do the children go? Okay, because your staff is in the middle of this. They have to run an agency, but they have a new board, an old board. Who do they respond to? Because the thing was so poorly structured. And I think the fact the agency has been running, by all accounts, extremely well is a credit to everybody here. But it will be our mission to immediately see if we can't get the stay lifted so this board can continue to do its work until and unless the court resolves ultimately the issue of the constitutionality of this act. I can tell you that there will be, in the next 2 weeks, additional complaints filed by bondholders and perhaps one of the insurance companies making essentially the same claim that was made by us on behalf of MDX. And the reason those claims are being brought is because the argument of standing The state kept saying MDX has some issue of standing, and we don't believe that the agent, and the judge agreed with us, there's no standing issue. But everybody conceded, well, a bondholder has standing, so the constitutionality issue is clearly addressed, so let's just eliminate that argument, so there'll be no conceivable basis for appellate review. And also we'll be challenging the 17 and 18 legislative acts that are every bit as unconstitutional as the one that was passed in 2019. So I can't predict timing. I can predict we will zealously and vigorously, within the bounds of the law, represent the interest of this board and the agency to the extent that the agency answers to this board. So that's where we are, Mr. Chairman. If anybody has any questions or comments, I'm here for you.
Well, before we take any questions from the board, let me say that, Mr. Stearns, you have represented this board in an exemplary manner. And your strategy and your logic and the people that have worked with you are extraordinary people. And I have never seen a more one-sided judgment. Every single argument that the state put forward, the judge similarly dismissed it, almost mocked him to a certain extent, although he's not that kind of a person. I found him to be a very thoughtful individual who read the law, knew the law very well, and you're right, at the end it was like, yes, sir, we agree, yes, sir, we agree. But I thought that the way that the case was presented, I thought, I want to applaud you and your team for a job well done, at least on this level, and I'm sure that it's going to continue at the next level. And God knows where this is going to end up, maybe the Supreme Court. But there's no doubt that this was an unconstitutional act, and I'm sure there are other avenues that we need to pursue. Reference other aspects of this particular bill that we also think may be illegal, and also even, you're right, the 17, 18 bills may also have problems within themselves.
Yeah, and thank you, Mayor, for those kind words. And we do work hard, no question we work hard. But on the other hand, the law and the facts here were clear. Yes. I've had tough cases. This was not one. This is a case where you had to get it done. You obviously have the balance of very powerful people on the other side, but their arguments, it's not their fault. They didn't make the facts. The facts are not very good for them. I think the more compelling thing when you think about it is, you ultimately say, well, why did home rule exist in the first place? Which is it's expensive to get to Tallahassee. Average people can't do it. They don't operate in the sunshine in the legislature. The Budget Commission that has hearings is not subject to the sunshine. The fact is that it's a process that works in the dark. And people can complain about the county commission, they can complain about you, but you're here, and your meetings are advertised, you meet in the public, you can't meet outside the public, and you're making public decisions, and have been operating a road system that is pretty darn efficient and fixing one that was woefully inadequate when you inherited it, and have made it an awful lot better. And it's a tough job, and you're doing it, but it's the job that needs to be done locally. And I think this attack on home rule, this isn't the first place we're going to see it. We're going to see it in other agencies as well. And I think we really do need to talk about our local legislators who have power in Tallahassee but don't have power here. We need to tell them, if you want power here, get your power here. Locally, run here, be representing this community here, because Dade County there's a reason for the history that goes back to 1956, why we have home rule, and fighting for it is critically important to this community. So it's been a labor of love for me, Mr. Chairman, and I hope that we continue to get a great outcome.
Any questions, Member Martinez?
First, Mr. Stern, I'd like to congratulate you. I'd also like to point out to Kirk DeLeon for his efforts. He's been representing us for years, and he was one of the people who was advocating strongly that we go forward, even before we brought in Mr. Stern.
He's been part of a great team.
Yes.
Kirk's been terrific.
So the other thing is, and just to follow up on what you were saying, there's an old saying that I'm sure aware of, bad facts make bad case law. Mm-hmm. So hopefully there will be calmer minds that will look at the way, as you have said, that the law was written, and reconsider whether or not this is something you want to appeal to establish precedent that could affect moving forward on multiple different issues. from what I read, and I think you agree, there was no, and from what the mayor has, Mr. Chairman has said, there was nothing that the state said that raised any concerns with the judge and the motion for summary judgment. Is that a fair assessment? My understanding is they went first.
They did, but, yes, but keep in mind, at the first hearing,
Right.
the first hearing, the judge said, why are you here?
Okay.
You can't win this case. And the mayor was wondering why he selected me to make the argument. First half hour was uphill.
Right.
He says, I don't know anything about home rule. I've never heard about home rule. But you got to give a judge credit because.
Correct.
And I kept saying, Judge, you're going to find it's not a close question. Oh, really? He kept saying, well, you know what? He did read, and it's not a close question.
Yes.
But it's not, if you're living in Tallahassee, you don't know this. And what you're finding is legislators don't know this. I mean, this history has sort of been lost. It's like the ancient history of how we got here to the point of what is home rule and how did we get here. So, but I think in the final analysis, this has been a very important exercise. It's inconvenient for this agency. It's been hurtful for the agency, hurtful for the people here. I hope we have given them some hope when everybody is kind of say, look, I don't want to hack off the people that might be coming. I don't want to hack off the people I'm working with. It's in a very difficult period. We understand that, but I hope we've given them hope.
I think what you said is important. This has been hurtful, not just, this board is made of volunteers except for Secretary Wolf. So we are individuals who will continue to be activists, but this has hurt the community. It's affected our ability to move forward on projects, and that's what is of greater concern for me, and hopefully we'll be able to start moving forward to benefit our community, which is why we're all sitting here today. And you have helped us be able to move forward in that capacity, and on my behalf, I would like to thank you and the rest of your team.
Great honor. And I apologize for calling you Mr. Webb, Mr. Wolf. I keep doing that, but it's a name dyslexia.
Thank you. Any other board members have any questions?
Thank you.
Sure. Member Wolf?
I had the pleasure to attend 2 of the hearings in Tallahassee and see the attorneys on both sides make what I thought were good arguments. And the judge, in fact, made those statements that, in fact, it was good legal opinion being expressed on both sides. But I would have to say that our attorney here, when he stood up, he was prepared, to the point, well-spoken, and I was pretty impressed with your skills.
Thank you, Mr. Wolf.
Thank you. Moving on. Management report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, board members, and it's good to see all of you. It truly is very good to see all of you. I prepared a memo. It's in your file. It gives you a report, bulleted point, of what's been going on for the last 48 days, period from July 3rd to today. It's been a very difficult 48 days. I will tell you that in summary, what we focused on as staff was operating the 5 highways, maintaining the 5 highways, ensuring that all of the work that is ongoing remained on schedule, making sure that the motoring public was safe and well tended to. But aside from that, there was a lot of issues that happened in the last 48 days or so. When the bill was signed on July 3rd, the next day was July 4th, holiday. But on Friday, we quickly realized that MDX, according to the letter of the law, was dissolved. So all of our insurance policies, liability in this building, all the vehicle insurance was in the name of MDX. So we were somewhat exposed. So we started working with the League of Cities to figure out how we can add or at least cover ourselves. And during that period of time, I made a decision to close the front gate. Didn't close the building. Even though the word got around that I closed the building, shut the operations at MDX, we never shut down anything at MDX. We simply tried to monitor how and who could come into the building until we resolved our insurance issue. And we were able to resolve that fairly quickly with the help of the Florida League of Cities. What we've been doing in the last month and a half, June 30th is close year-end, is our year-end financials. So we've had to close our financials for MDX, even though we were in limbo of who we were. As you're closing out MDX, you have to act in the best interest of MDX to close the books. We're preparing our CAFR, our Consolidated Annual Financial Report, and our popular annual financial report, working with auditors, MDX's auditors, and the Office of the State Auditor General, who's here doing an audit on the financial situation of MDX. And we have encouraged them that they need to finish it. We want them to finish it. It is in the best interest of everyone that that model is finished. One of the issues that came out of that audit was that the realization, and I think Mr. Board made a presentation 2 years ago, I believe it was, when you were treasurer, where it showed the 5-year work program, and we showed that there was a shortfall that needed debt issuance. And, but that's been lost in translation. So when the auditors started working on this, they started looking at all the cash balances, they started looking at all the accounts, and they came to the realization, you have a deficit. Were you intending to issue debt? And the answer is, of course. Otherwise, we can't build the work program. And the reason I say that is because the exercise that's being done by the Auditor General is to look and see if we can reduce toll rates, if the agency can reduce toll rates and do the rebate program that was in the law. I will say, as I've said to this board in the past, of course you can reduce toll rates if you give up projects, capital projects in the program. And this board had authorized a rebate program, which is one of the issues that I would like to bring back to the full board when we have a full board meeting, because we did reserve that money in our financials. And we've got the results, we've got a lot of the data, and we'd like to bring it to you for your consideration on when and how much, because remember, we modified some of the criteria. We increased the threshold to $250. We put a cap on it. We've been looking at the numbers. We believe that there's some compromises that we can do to the benefit of our customers, the most frequent of users on our system, and I'd like to bring that back to you. We've also had to do an update of our cash flow. As you know, for the last 2 years, we have not been able to issue debt. We have a qualified bond opinion.
Before you go,
Sure.
before you move on, in the law, there was some stipulation about a reduction, a reduction that they wanted, okay, something aspirational reduction. But that was to everybody, right? There was no cap on that. It was Miami-Dade County residents, and there was no.
That was
okay.
the,
Have you done any kind of analysis, and has the state done any kind of analysis, working with the parameters set by the state? What do you think is actually doable? And also, I believe that the law says that, and completing everything in the 5-year work program, and I think they put an emphasis on the Kendall Parkway.
right.
Okay, so have you done that, and has it flowed through the state, and what kind of reduction could you possibly, could you give in terms of a rebate program?
So there's two issues there. There is what's the rebate program, and then there's an analysis of a potential reduction of toll rates. So it's two different issues. I can tell you that if we reduce toll rates and you reduce revenues, we will not be able to afford the work program that's been adopted. Having said that, we looked at what their intent was for what they called the Sunshine State Rebate Program, which was an aspirational goal of 25%, but the parameters were to everybody who uses the system, who has a SunPass and spends at least $12.50 a month. It had nothing to do with a yearly, so this is on a monthly basis. We had our traffic and revenue consultants do an analysis of what that would mean. We've got the data. And you were looking at upwards of almost $40 million cost. Because what ends up happening is that a person who spends $12.50 in a particular month would get a rebate. That person may not use the system anymore. So what you're doing is you're giving rebates to a lot more people that don't meet any kind of an annual rebate. So what we did is that we looked at the intent of that law, and it's to give our customers rebates. And we know that we had a $250 cap, a $250 threshold that a customer needs to meet annually, and that we put a cap of $300. So we've been looking at it, and we want to present it to the board at the next board meeting for approval, is we're looking at different thresholds. We used to have $100 with no cap. That cost us roughly $6 million the last time we did it. But what we found is that a lot of people who are getting a rebate were barely making it because not that many folks were qualifying at $100. So what we decided is if you slide it down to $250, you would be able to give more rebate to the more frequent user. So what we've done is between the 100 and the 250, we're analyzing the different increments, and what we'd like to bring back to you is those options, because I think it's important that we don't put a cap on the customers, that if they spent X amount of dollars and we can increase the percent rebate close to the 25% goal, that they should deserve that money back if they are frequent customers. But it's got to have parameters, because it has to be something that's managed. So we'd like to bring that to you, Chairman and Board, at the next meeting, so that you can consider it, and we can put it in our financials and get it moving. We do, as we've done in the past, our plan is that all of those checks go out, we prepare them in-house, we mail them out. Typically, it's been the first week of December, right after Thanksgiving, first week of December. All of that, I would like to bring to you at the next meeting for your consideration. I think there are opportunities, Chairman, board members, to provide this community the relief that is sorely needed. Okay? We, in the last month, we've had to address a lot of questions from rating agencies and bond insurers. During the period of uncertainty, what we did as staff is direct them to the council representing MDX board. So a lot of the bondholders and insurers asked Mr. Stearns and his team what the status of the case was and moving forward. Obviously, there's concerns. We also did we've recently, in the last few weeks, we started updating our financial model. We're actually looking, board members, at various opportunities to refund some of our debt, primarily 2005, 2010 bond offerings. We're looking at it because of the market conditions that exist today. There might be opportunities to take some benefit up front, because if our goal is to deliver the Kendall Parkway, then we need to build a program that's affordable, that does not shift the burden completely to the community, and we want to bring that to you for your consideration as well.
But if you have to issue bonds for the Kendall Parkway, and we can't get a clean opinion, and we certainly can't get a clean opinion right now, so how are we or any other agency going to issue bonds if you can't get a clean opinion?
That is the challenge, sir. And if it can't be municipal bonds, we're looking at other instruments that potentially don't require municipal bonds. We're thinking of even taxable debt, short-term taxable debt, so that we can do this and move forward. And
But
then
short-term
refinance.
taxable debt is going to cost you more than
Interest, yes.
than our bonding, all right? So
Understood, but the markets in the condition that they are today, because of the way the markets are today, there might be a very short window of opportunity, and we've asked the financial advisors to analyze every option, to put everything on top of the table, because if the goal is to move these projects forward, we need to figure out a way to get them forward. I'm confident that the legal team will be able to succeed on the issues of the cloud on our debt, because that can be clarified. We hope that it can be done sooner than later. But in the meantime, we can't just sit around and not be able to deliver to the community. So I've asked staff and our consultant, our financial team, to look at every opportunity and bring it to you.
at what cost?
And that is what we will bring before you, sir.
And I think that's what's essential, why we need to.
That is the whole
Why
point.
it's so essential we had this meeting today and continue to move forward. We have been set back because of what has occurred as your treasurer, insofar as how we can move our projects forward. It's affected our ability to do the rewards program that we want to issue out this year, because as a board, we have to make these decisions. Staff doesn't have the qualifications to do it. This injunction is essential in that capacity because it allows us to start moving the needle forward again. So we need these questions to be, staff to present to this board these issues so that we can make a determination if it's able to be done. That's why I concur with Mr. Rodriguez that this needs to be at the next meeting.
What we want to bring to you are real costs, real examples, so that it's on the table. This is what it's cost us, or this is what potentially has cost us, this whole issue of having a cloud on our debt, or not being able to issue debt, or having to go a different route of taxable or private placement of whatever form. The innuendo that we have steered, and I say this because it is a matter of public record, the innuendo that the staff at MDX or MDX has steered or controlled what rating agencies or bondholders believe or don't believe is absolutely false.
But
That
don't
is
give-
not the way it works. That is not the
Don't give
way
credence
rating agencies.
by making the comment. I
Correct.
don't think so.
But,
Can,
it was stated in the court.
Yeah, board member, board, go ahead.
can I get, Carlos, can you give us a sense for the timeline? I think if the essence of the problem is a clean opinion, like it was stated, what kind of timelines are we looking at in terms of getting these matters resolved and cleared up, assuming what you can assume without considering anything exogenous that doesn't, that we can't see, but what kind of timelines are we looking at?
Mr. Stearns.
I literally cannot predict it. I can say this to you. The costs that are being discussed here are significant for the people of Dade County. The delay is expensive. If the governor and the FDOT announce that they're not going to appeal and accept it, you're going to get clean opinions and move on. So you start there with the notion that in this war is where you get clean opinions. And somebody needs to be advising them that just you've cost benefit. Look at what benefit you're getting from fighting on versus the cost. If it goes on, we're completely at the whim of very good people who are on the First District and on the Supreme Court. Constitutional issues will be reviewed by the Supreme Court. It's jurisdiction of the Supreme Court is very narrow. One of the issues that is clearly there is constitutional review. So, obviously we're going to be saying now, immediate, but lawyers can say, I need 3 months to write a brief, I need da-da-da-da-da, and we're going to be having to move to accelerate that, and the judge is going to have to make decisions. And in the meantime, if your bonding capacity is not going to be, it's going to be a problem for you, it's a problem for GMX, it's a problem for everybody until this is resolved. And the easiest way is a political solution, which is to say, why are we doing this? What is the benefit of changing the table, the chairs at the table? What are we really getting here? Because when you have existing bonds, someone needs to explain to these folks, the bonds have a financial obligation. They have to be repaid, and somebody's going to have to repay them.
This might not be the forum to argue your case. I was just trying to get a timeline, sis. But
Well, the answer
I
is-
do appreciate your
He's
enthusiasm and
automatic.
your passion on the matter.
Mr. Vice Chairman, I think the issue is I'm giving you a flavor of the kind of arguments we will
Yes,
make,
I
and the
understood.
judges may or may not listen to them.
Understood. So the first gate might be that they decide not to appeal. So that would be the first scenario.
Yes.
In the second scenario, if it ends up at the highest court, give us a sense of timelines regarding
We will probably try to move it to the Supreme Court immediately. The First District has the power to, since it's a constitutional issue, to move it to the Supreme Court. FDOT may agree or disagree with that, in which case the First District will make the call. We will be making the very argument that you're making here. Time is of the essence. The Supreme Court of Florida, since it's been reconstituted, 3 new justices, has met an extraordinary schedule. They have really been turning things quickly and efficiently. Everybody is impressed. There are not too many more compelling issues involving public policy than this one. That's all I can say to you.
very good. Thank you.
Continuing with the report, on procurement, we've closed out a number of projects from this last fiscal year. I've asked staff to work on the solicitation of various projects that were placed on hold, so we can bring it to the board and see if we can move them forward, advertise them, award them, and so on and so forth.
Such as?
Such as the 836-34, which are the ramps from the Turnpike to the extension of 836, 82nd Avenue and Northwest 7th Street, the express bus service on 836, which is something that has been pending. The Dolphin Park and Ride has been built. It's not functional. It needs the service. So those are just a flavor of some of the procurements that will come before you. There are nuts and bolts amendments to contracts. There are, contracts for repair of joints and, rehab of bridges that will be coming before you for award and advertisement. So there's a number of action items that the board will have to take. And actually, I'll get to the conclusion. We've actually developed an agenda for a potential operations committee meeting prior to a next board meeting. And the assumption that I make is that there's a board meeting scheduled for the 27th of August, and that we would have an operations committee right before that. so that we can look at the items and move them forward. And if there's any financial item, then we can simply make it a joint financial and operations committee meeting prior to the board, as we've done in the past.
I think we should.
So,
I think we should have a joint
Okay.
operations and financial so that we can get an update on those things.
Okay, we'll discuss that at the end of the
Very good, sir.
the report.
we did lose 3 employees in the last 48 days. One retired, Keith Scheffler. He sat here at the dais a couple times in toll operations. Jason Green, who many of you knew as our property manager, internal controls budget coordinator. He took the position of financial director at the town of Surfside. And Carlos Aldivar's associate general counsel, Francine Steelman, took the job of general counsel to Sintra in North Carolina, overseeing the I-66 concession project up in Virginia. So we're down to 29 employees, so we've had to do some employee closeouts in the last couple months. As far as toll operations, staff has continued to work with Florida's Turnpike on the CCSS. I don't have to delve into what's been going on. The secretary has made a decision not to extend that contract. There's a whole host of questions that will have to answered. I know that the Senate wants to have a hearing on what went wrong and how it went wrong. There's been a lot of personnel changes at the contractor of conduit and at Florida's Turnpike. There's a new director, Nicola LaCory, who used to be the chief financial officer at the Turnpike years ago. So she's taken over at Florida's Turnpike. We've continued to attend meetings. The system is working. There's issues as it relates to MDX, and it was a matter of public record. We're about $14 million in the hole. And it's not about toll by plate. It's simply SunPass customers who were allowed to have their accounts go negative. And typically, there was notification sent to SunPass customers that their transponder wasn't working, their credit card didn't work, it was mounted incorrectly, whatever. And then there was a threshold where you would start getting notification. During the transition, that was waived, and the balances grew. For MDX, it's $14 million. For Tampa Hillsborough, it's about $6-7 million. And for Florida's Turnpike, it's about $80 million. I think that's the biggest issue, because the concern is if we, and I say we as a collective body of tolling agencies, similar to toll by plate. In toll by plate, you get an invoice, you get a second invoice. If you don't pay it, we put a registration hold, and eventually when you're going to redo your registration, you'll pay. If none of those issues can be done for the negative balance, then how is someone going to pay their balance? And that is something that's being struggled. It's not an easy issue to tackle, and I know that the secretary and the director of Turnpike, this is top of their list to figure out how they're going to take care of that. So we've been coordinating with them, we've been working with them, and see how we're going to resolve those particular issues. Our lanes have been working great. We've been managing that, our consultants, for the last couple months. And then on the engineering construction side, you've seen the progress that have taken place on 836.
Can you stop there?
Sure.
I'm sorry, I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Going back to that contract for the back office with the state.
Yes.
If this would have been a regular vendor, we would have been very different with them. We would have been completely different. The fact that it's with the state, we're basically, it's been a year long with issues, and the issues are still remaining. What other mechanism are we going to do or allow them to continue to run on a negative against the people of Miami-Dade with the SunPass before we activate a different plan to bring back the back office back to Miami-Dade?
I'm not sure that the issue of bringing the back office to Miami-Dade or doing it ourselves contractually will solve the 14. I think the issue that this board's going to have to discuss and really contemplate, and we'll have to give you the numbers, is how many account holders are in the negative. And if we were to apply some kind of a penalty to force the payment, how many people would be affected? And then the question would be, do we want to do that to the thousands of customers that potentially are out there, tens and tens of thousands of customers? And it's a lot of small amounts that make up that big money. So the question is, do we really want to do this or not? And I think what we've decided to do is we followed the interlocal agreement with the state, and we're following what the state has done. And the state has chosen not to apply any penalties and to allow customers to pay it slowly. Some customers have paid, otherwise it's just dragging and not sure how we're going to force the issue. But Maria, it's about $14 million is what we're in the negative, and that is that coupled with the almost $16 million in reduced revenue because of the 6% reduction of tolls last year. Our toll revenue for the fiscal year ended 2019 is about $205 million, about $30 million below what our projections were. That's significant, okay? So on the construction side, I'll give you a real brief on each project.
Wait, hold on a
Sure.
second. That can't be because this board approved that reduction.
We did.
Okay, so you couldn't have anticipated it because we approved the reduction.
Correct. That's what it,
Okay,
that's,
fair enough.
that's, right.
All right, so the reduction in the anticipation
Correct, correct.
was the botched job of, I guess, this company, CCSS?
No, it's conduit.
Or,
Conduit.
okay, that particular company, and
That
this, I
was-
guess, this transition that they had
Correct.
at the state.
Correct.
Now, you said something interesting, because I remember I told you that I got a couple of bills from FDOT,
Mm-hmm.
even though I have a transponder, and have a transponder forever, and I have it automatically bill my credit card. Are you talking about that amount, like, I got billed for like $1, all right, which is probably took $3 to bill me, all right, for my dollar? Is that what we're talking about? Because I have an active, SunPass, valid SunPass. My credit cards are fine. It refills and replenishes all the time. Why was I given 2 or 3 bills for $1? Is that the problem? And we're talking about thousands of people like me?
No, sir.
Okay.
No, sir.
You're,
Much different.
yeah, it's much different. I'll give you an example, and I'll use one of our consultants, Terry Garcia. Terry Garcia received a bill from SunPass for about $800, and she was a SunPass customer. For whatever reason, her transponder wasn't working. So she gets the bill after 6 months of not issuing any notice or anything, and she's faced with paying it. She could pay it, but there's many people that can't because they're hit with it at once, and that's where the problem has been. One of the first things that we did as a group was reach out to the highest dollar amount customers, and many of them have paid. It's the rest that are between $30 and, $100. That's the,
Well, hold on. Do you have a transponder?
yes.
Well, isn't it supposed to, when they read the tag, isn't it supposed to like match to a transponder and say, well, the transponder is not working, and then charge the transponder anyway?
There was some issue. The thing is that instead of telling me right away, they continued negatively charging me. not
Accumulating
tell
it.
me Until 6 to 8 months out.
He had a credit card that was declined 3 times. It expired. They didn't notify her. They kept allowing her to go further negative without letting her clean it up.
Right.
Ultimately, in November of last year, when she came to me, we found out what the problem was. Outside of that are individuals that fail to maintain their account, where they don't mount their transponder properly or whatever the case may be. We take the picture of the image, but then when we try to match it, their license plate isn't on the account, which was your problem. You had a vehicle, probably, I think it was 4 or 5 years that you had that license plate, never had a problem. And then all of a sudden, just one day, it didn't work. So when we tried to match your license plate to your account, we said, we don't know who this is, because you never changed the license plate. You still had your old one from 5 years ago. That's how good the system is. It took 5 years for it to make a mistake. But when it finally did, they mailed you a bill. So we fixed it, matched your name and everything. It went away because it charged to your account.
Fair enough. Okay, so we got a mess. Thank you.
Yes.
Because of the complexity of this issue, because of the ramifications of any decision that we might make, I think either we get a report prior to the Operations and Finance Committee, a detailed, exhaustive report, so that the facts, so that everybody has the same fact basis and it doesn't depend on the presentation, so that we can come informed and then listen to your oral presentation. But I would like to know a complete diagnostic of how many people, why, and classified in a table manner so that we can know where the weights are. So if we were going to make a decision finding, more or less impact, that we have those actual numbers prior to the Operations and Finance Committee meeting.
If we look at the trend, and agreed, that we can put
Can we
this
have that,
together.
yes or no?
I don't. Not the detail that you're looking for. I have a bigger picture look, but I can't tell you exactly why somebody didn't pay. I don't know that. What I know is when they allowed the accounts to go negative, if you were a SunPass customer that had a
I'm sorry, Steve, who is they? You're saying they. Everybody's talking about they. Who's they?
the
I heard the word
secretary
conduit. Who
and the governor.
Who runs that?
These came down from the governor's office to the secretary, et cetera, saying this is what we're going to allow the system to do, to not impact customers. Because of the first issue that they had was the ability for taking payments online and replenishing accounts. The system wasn't doing it properly, or it was doing it 2 or 3 times instead of 1 time. So
Not to cut you off, but to the best of your ability, if you could deliver the report prior to the meeting, that would be helpful for all of us to make an informed decision. To the
And
best
I-
of your ability.
No, and I understand. And I think what people need to understand is the fact of letting people go negative was only supposed to be a 3-week issue to allow Conduit, the contractor, to fix their system so we could then turn it back on and do the replenishments. When it didn't happen in 3 weeks and they let it go for almost a year, that's what exacerbated the problem. So now you dug this big hole. In that negative, at the time that they did this in August of
Excuse me,
last
but
year.
don't say we. We is us.
Right,
We
it's
is
not
not
we.
us, okay? I mean, obviously, who made that decision is not we, okay? Who made that decision?
The Turnpike, the
But-
secretary.
We're not we.
That's not we.
It's not.
And that's our problem, okay? A lot of people
Agreed.
that we, it means everything, Turnpike, everything is we. We're not we. That's not we.
Yes, sir, I understand.
That's them.
True.
Okay? All right.
Agreed.
We are MDX. There's only 5 roads. That's it. Everything else, everybody else who told you, it's not us.
Correct.
Okay.
We will have that report, and we will present it at Operations Committee. As far as construction, I'm just going to highlight the big ones. 836, everybody saw that the 4th lane going eastbound was opened. Last night, we were supposed to open the westbound. I believe the rain got in the way again. It's been a heck of a rainy season, but westbound should be done by the end of the week. We have continued to work with the state on the 83611, which is the Signature Bridge double deck. You've seen a lot of construction over at 17th Avenue. They've been demolishing, shifting traffic. We're coordinating with them. On the 874 extension project, the bridge over the Turnpike, work continues to go on there. There's a detailed report in your memo of all the activities. I'm going to try to summarize because there's a lot. Because one of the things I do want to specify, because I did get calls about this, we did not stop any activities as maintenance or anything that dealt with safety. All of our inspections were done on bridges in a timely manner. We identified maintenance requirements, deficiencies. We did all of our inspections. In fact, we document that in our system. All of the roadway operations, maintenance operations have been ongoing for the last month and a half. That includes all Road Ranger. Road Ranger was never taken out. It was never reduced. It's always been out on the roadway. We've done all of that. We've done our asset maintenance has continued. We have done everything that is related to the roadways. As of August 13th, when the judge ruled, we have a number of work orders that have been issued that are pending work. That stuff is going to start getting done. Things like striping, the reflective pavement markers, ongoing things. But the point is that we never laid back on operations or maintenance. Yes, ma'am.
Can you expand a little bit on the safety program on the 112? Does that require bonding?
Yes, the 112 Safety and Rehab Program, which is part of our work plan, for us to be able to move forward, we're going to have to issue debt. We have small projects that we might be able to fit in, and what I've been trying to express to the board is that we'd like to bring to this board ability to advertise projects when we're successful in this whole ordeal. We are going to have to rebuild our work plan with affordability. I don't know how else to say it. I mean, the damage has been done. We are going to have to take a step back, and I say this because everybody has asked in the rating, are you going to try to, drive that 10-foot pile in the 6-foot hole? No, I'm going to have to adjust the pile to fit the 6-foot hole, and it's going to have to be on affordability and priorities. And this board is going to have to look at priorities, and I will say, as we've always said, safety, preservation, and then capacity. And the biggest capacity project that we have in our program affects over 600,000 people in West Dade.
Yes.
And that will be our priority. We have a board, just a preliminary board, of all the different elements. We would like the board to take action on allowing us to advertise design work for the arterials that feed into the Parkway. We would like to continue acquiring right-of-way. We would like to continue working with the permitting agencies to secure permitting. We know that there is a challenge to the CDMP, a 2-week hearing. Albert Sosa was our representative on that hearing, was concluded. We're waiting, I think it's the end of September, for both sides to provide proposed orders, and then the judge has till probably the end of October to issue her ruling. That ruling could be appealed at district court. So in anticipation of that, we want to start advertising, we want to start getting work out, because we think we will be successful on the CDMP challenge. Okay?
With the CDMP, I mean, with
Yes.
the 836, the extension, the Kendall Parkway.
Yes.
There's a big ballyhoo report that was issued, or a reporter put out that there was a 6-minute total savings for the Kendall Parkway. And I want to put that on the record as to what that was all about, and what do our engineers think is the actual time savings for the people of West Kendall versus this 6 minutes. So can you give me an update of how this 6 minutes came about?
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to
And-
ask Albert to come
Fair
up.
enough.
He
Okay.
is the engineer who testified and was our representative at the hearing, so he
Okay.
can address it.
Good afternoon, Albert Sosa. So at the hearing, there was an exchange towards the end of the hearing between a specific witness and a attorney for the Audubon Society. And the line of questioning was related to a hypothetical situation with a hypothetical location, a hypothetical commute. And they appeared to use or reference an inappropriate statistic to derive a result, right? So a hypothetical commute was created between one location and another. Hypothetically, they said it would, the attorney asked if it was a 1 hour in each direction, it would be a 2-hour commute. And then they referenced a table in the report that was actually an area-wide statistic, right? So one of the things that we report on as part of the product that we produce in terms of the technical work is you look at the whole area. It's a 75 square mile area, which is the area of influence for traffic in the area. And it's an area-wide metric known as vehicle hours traveled. So it's basically saying everybody within this 75 square mile area, everybody who drives, who has some sort of trip in there, over the course of a day on a net basis, what is the impact to them? And the study showed that in that entire area, there was a 5% reduction in vehicle hours traveled, right? So the witness was asked, if you had a 2-hour commute and it was reduced by this 5% shown on this table, that would be 6 minutes, right? That's where that 6 minutes came from. But unfortunately, it's not representative of any specific commute or what any specific commuter could expect. It's not an appropriate use of that statistic, right? It's just you're comparing apples and oranges. So Mr. Mayor, I believe you put out a statement which detailed what was actually shown in the study in terms of expected travel times. And it's in one of the appendixes to one of the reports, and it's actually very detailed, right? The study team actually had what's known as the floating car method. They actually have somebody drive the different routes in the study area to figure out what existing travel patterns are and what existing travel times are. And what they show is folks that live in West Kendall that are currently having to drive 20, 30, 40 minutes to get to the turnpike. And then once they get to the turnpike, they commute they continue their commute. In this specific case, we're assuming it's a commuter from West Kendall that's going to some point in Doral or downtown, the health district. So they take between 20 and 40 minutes just to get to the turnpike. And then from there, they go to where they need to go. Once you have the Kendall Parkway in place, there will be interchanges that are immediately adjacent to these same folks, right? So rather than, if I lived on 157th Avenue and 136th Street, I take almost 40 minutes to get to the Heft in the morning to then continue my trip. Once the Kendall Parkway is in place, I'll have an interchange less than 5 minutes away.
Correct.
That's where the true travel time savings of a commuter that has that type of pattern, that's what they would experience, right? Rather than having to commute 30 minutes to get to the Heft, now my commute is less than 5 minutes to get to the Kendall Parkway. That would indicate a savings of 20, 25 minutes, 30 minutes, depending on which specific route, right? There's an infinite number of routes you could take.
And Albert, that's per day, 20 to 25 minutes per day.
One way.
And per
Wait,
direction.
One way.
Well, yeah, but per day to get on the Kendall, when you're in Kendall, so it's at least 40 minutes, it's an
No,
hour.
but that's you can save 20, 25 minutes one way, 20, 25 minutes the other way.
Absolutely.
So it's between 40
But
and
also,
50 minutes.
there's another thing, the component too, is that the people that are actually be on the Kendall Parkway, the Kendall Parkway should be traveling faster now on that segment than the people on the turnpike, because you'll decongest the turnpike. Now, the turnpike will travel faster too.
Absolutely.
So the people on the turnpike that take the turnpike will actually get a benefit of the Kendall Parkway, even if they take the turnpike, because there'll be fewer people on the turnpike. So everybody is going to benefit. Also, the people from South Dade benefit, because there's fewer people on the turnpike than there would be because of all the Kendall people that jump on the turnpike.
Absolutely, and also the commuter that wasn't commuting.
Your local streets are
The
going
husband who was
to
going to get groceries in the
Yeah.
middle of the day or in the morning, or dropping their child off at daycare, they benefit because the local roadway network has been decongested because that traffic is now on a limited access facility. So
Right.
there's innumerable benefits that come as a result of the traffic.
That's why the
environment for
community
project.
has been so, and you know it has been so, because they see it every day, they live it every day. Albert, can you address one thing
Yes, sir.
before, because I think it needs to be on the record. This notion that if we put in this parkway, now you've taken the traffic from the turnpike, doubled it, because now you have the parkway, and you're funneling it all to one, and it's the same number of cars. Because
Yeah, so, one of the other things that our study looks at, right, is you do your traffic model, right? And you see your traffic model is not infinite, right? You can't show the Kendall Parkway and analyze what the effect was in Iowa, right? It's just, you have to set a limit somewhere. And the way you set your limit is you look, when you turn the Kendall Parkway on in the model, where do you stop seeing significant effects versus when it's not on, right? And that's how we arrived at that 75 square mile area. It's actually quite large. It's from just east of the turnpike to Chrome Avenue, from northwest 12th Street, actually a little bit north of 12th Street, down to 152nd Street. Once you get outside of that boundary, right, once you get to like 97th Avenue, the change is really minimal. Once you get down to 152, the change is really minimal. So you have to set that boundary. So what we found on 836 in this example is once you got to approximately 107th Avenue, the change was not significant, right? So it's reasonable to assume from that once you're on the 836 and you get to 107th Avenue, your commute, the effect you would see beyond that is not significantly different one way or another. And then you ask yourself, well, why is that, right? Like, why do we not see that difference? And the answer to that is actually our project 83634, right? So right now, there's a lot of demand to get to the central part of the county, Doral, West Airport West, that area for jobs. And there's missing movements on the 836 extension to the turnpike, to and from the north and the west, right? So we realized that really early on in the study. So we spun off Project 83634, which completes those movements. So you don't have a significant increase of traffic on 836 as a result of the project east of 107th Avenue. because traffic is finding a more efficient way to use the overall network to get to the places that they need to go. So it would not be correct from the data that we have, we've analyzed, it would not be correct to say that traffic conditions on 836 and 27th Avenue have somehow deteriorated because of this project, because there's more volume utilizing our system at that point, right?
Well, I think to me, the logic of it is that once you get to 107th and 836, it'll be the same as what you got today. It's the same number of cars are going to be there, but the cars are going to get to that point faster.
Absolutely, they do.
So you're going to save 20 minutes to get to that point. And then whatever that commute is from that point, it is from that point. But you're going to get that, and then once you clear 107th on the westbound, you're going to save another 20 minutes, all right, on the way back, because the traffic is going to split, and you're going to be able to come if you take the Kendall Parkway, you're going to be able to get to your house coming from the west instead of coming from the east. You don't have to battle everybody all the way down to Turnpike. Then you don't have to battle everybody on either Kendall or Bird Road going westbound.
Absolutely.
Because you have another avenue.
Absolutely. And it shouldn't be.
This is not rocket science, man.
And Mr. Chairman, what's important to note is that 20-minute savings is going to save those who are also going east to the Turnpike as well.
Yes.
Because there'll be half as many
Yes.
cars going there. It's going to benefit not just people going west to the Parkway, people going east to the Turnpike. It's going to be less cars.
There
statistically.
was a lot of, discussion about that particular, article.
Yeah.
And it came at the end of 2 weeks of testimony, and so everybody hung on to that and said, well, then why are we building this thing? Well, because that's not accurate, to be honest with you.
Oh, yeah.
And so today I was down in South Dade, and I met with the chamber down there, and they're fully supportive of the Kendall Parkway. That's because they understand what it does for them too, and what it can do for that area. So I just wanted to put that on the record, so that, we can, clarify some of these, although it was reported, what was reported was accurate, it really wasn't. Because it accentuated something which was really a hypothetical, not the reality of what that particular, what the Kendall Parkway will do to the people of West Dade. That being said, it's still problematic, no matter what we do, because we can't get a clean opinion. We can't get a clean opinion. And if we can't get a clean opinion, then we don't know what the additional costs are going to be for the 836. And by the way, GMX, if they, Mr. Stearns, I don't think you know that you think they're not going to be successful, but just in the case that the Supreme Court says, yes, GMX is the body, they won't be able to issue bonds either. So the Kendall Parkway and other projects are very much in jeopardy because of the actions that have been taking place. And so we need to win this in court, but we also need to talk to our legislators and say, look, this is causing us harm. We need to, let this go, and we need to see how we can find a middle ground, where the people in Miami-Dade County are not harmed, that you get what you have said you wanted, which is some kind of toll relief. Even in your law, it says the toll relief will be based on, could you do the projects? And so I don't think that's an unreasonable place to be, but we need to find out what that amount could be. We don't seem to think that it's the same amount that some people have been claiming that it would be. I think it's going to be significantly lower, but we should be charging, our tolls should be, we should charge the tolls that are necessary to complete the projects. Not 1 cent more, all right?
And I think,
But this board needs to have the flexibility and needs to have the authority to set the tolls, because then we can get a clean opinion. Then we can get our bond rating back up.
Right.
Then we can then we can actually do these projects at a reduced cost to the people of Miami-Dade County. So that's my comments for the soapbox. Mr. Martinez,
well, just to
recognized.
reiterate, one of the things that I think is essential to also emphasize is that the Kendall Parkway project isn't a project that is something that this board just is supportive of. We were at town halls all over Kendall, and this, I would say 95 to 99% of those who live of the 600,000 citizens of Miami-Dade County that live in West Kendall are enormously supportive of this project. Obviously, they're concerned about others, but I would say there was concerns about where it was going through, but I think you would agree, Mr. Chairman, that there was not very little opposition in the region where they live. They are desperate for this relief, and they wanted us to do this as a way to alleviate the ability to get to the 836 or to the Turnpike. The traffic to get from, for example, on 88th, from 147 to get to the Turnpike, it's 30 minutes of, bumper to bumper before you even get on the highway. So this is going to alleviate that issue for both sides. And I think there's not enough emphasis being done to that. This isn't something that this board wants. This isn't something that staff wants. This is something that the men and women who live in West Kendall desperately are supporting and want as well. And that's part of our job, is to, if we can, provide the opportunity and the ability to those who are desperately asking for relief to give them the relief they're doing. And that's what makes this project so essential. And it's a unique opportunity to build a new roadway where we won't be jamming up traffic anywhere else while we're doing the improvements, because it's going to be really rebuilt and then it'll open. So I think we minimize the amount of need that we need to get to make sure that we talk about the 600,000 individuals who are up there who are asking for this, and not simply implying that somehow this is a project that MDX wants to create because we want to create more toll roads. No, this is something being asked by those who live up there. This is something that is being demanded by them as well. Thank you, sir. And I'm off my soapbox.
The memo is much more expansive. I haven't been able to communicate with a lot of you over the last month and a half. It's on, it's just, I don't know why it's not working. There it is. Please contact me. I'll be more than happy to walk you through it, give you a tour of the projects, so on and so forth. If I heard this board correctly, we will have an operations combined financial meeting prior to the next board meeting on August 27th. We will send out an agenda tomorrow with items. And Mr. Board, as soon as we have these analyses, we will send them out. So bear with us, because you might be getting a number of emails. But we will give you a call and follow up to make sure that you have them. And that concludes my report, sir.
Okay, any questions on the report? Yes, sir.
I just want to be clear so that I'm sure that I'm going to get what you're looking for. You would like to get an analysis of the invoices that are due, the amounts due, as well as a negative balance in tiers of the value of each by how many owe $0 to $10, $10 to $50. Would that suffice?
That would be a great.
Okay. I can do that.
Okay, any further questions on the report? Seeing none. Moving on to announcements. As stated, we'll have a combined Finance Operations Committee prior to the next board meeting. Next board meeting is scheduled for the 27th of August at 4 p.m. here at the William Lehman MDX building, the boardroom. Are there any other comments by any board member or executive director? Yes?
Mr. Chairman, two other items that are in your agenda in the folder at the request of board members. Our MPO representative wanted to share is Ms. Fano, wanted to share an email she sent to Ms. Bouclé because there was a parent oversight on Expressway Authority membership on the TPO. So she's already communicated that with the executive director at the TPO, and hopefully that'll get resolved. And the letter that you sent to Representative Fernandez-Barquin, who spoke about GMX, MDX, and the Parkway.
Yeah, this was an interesting presentation by one of the representatives. One of the things that he said is he thought that within 10 years that the urban development boundary would be moved. And I'd like to know how he got to that particular train of thought. Something that certainly not something that we want to do. He also said that he contemplated some kind of a CPI for the Greater Miami Expressway Authority, something that the board has never contemplated a CPI here at MDX. And and I vehemently will oppose any kind of CPI here at MDX. And if in fact GMX prevails during my time in office, I will vehemently oppose any kind of a CPI increase. Because I don't think it's actually not necessary. It may be something that we want to reiterate at the next board meeting, our opposition to a CPI. I know that we have already said that. Maybe we want to make it stronger so that the world knows that we here at MDX, with all the projects that we have, we do not contemplate, have not contemplated, and will not contemplate CPI increase, and make it maybe harder for a future board to implement a CPI in the future. It's something that particular representative said, that a CPI may be in the works for GMX, which is something, again, I don't understand. He also said something very interesting, that there was possible contemplation of legislation to bring the Homestead extension of the Florida Turnpike into GMX. Gee, what a great idea. Fortunately, it wasn't his idea, but it's something that I actually have floated to the governor and to our legislators, and have yet to receive a response. Something that can actually bring real toll relief to the people of Miami-Dade County, including eliminating the CPI on the turnpike. But I have yet to receive a response from anybody at the state. Hopefully I can get a response sometime in the future from somebody in the state about all the letters that we've written, all the predictions that we made, which, by the way, all came true. All the warnings that we gave them, they all came true. And no, we made no phone calls to anybody to lower our bond rating. That would, first of all, be ridiculous. Second, it wouldn't have any impact, because the folks at Moody's, Fitch, and S&P, they don't listen to us. They look at the underlying conditions, and then they determine what the bond rating is going to be, because they don't respond to us. They only respond to the bondholders.
Correct.
That's who they're responsible to. And so there was something said at the hearing that somehow alluded to that we had done all these things, and it was ridiculous, and I think the judge understood it as being ridiculous. The bond rating agencies did what the bond rating agencies do, and the bond rating agencies just did exactly what we thought they were going to do, because we knew exactly what was being done would amount to a reduction in our bonding capacity and our rating. Fortunately, that's already happened. That's why we need to know exactly how much this is going to cost.
Correct.
To us. First of all, can't even issue bonds without a clean opinion, as far as I know. And so now that we have to look for other avenues, like private placement or something outside of our normal bond procedures, it's going to cost the people of Miami-Dade more, or the alternative is projects will not get done.
Right.
So one or the other. But we have no intention on this board, and I'd like to get an affirmation of that, of implementing any kind of CPI in the foreseeable future here at MDX. And so can I get an affirmation of that? Can we do that again to make sure that everybody understands that? Because there is still some confusion as to what it is our intent is. And we have not raised tolls in this agency since 2014? 14?
We haven't implemented a toll since 2014 when we closed the system.
Right. We haven't implemented a toll since 2014. Okay, very good. And no CPI. Yes.
We could put the resolution and reaffirm it at the board meeting. In fact, Javier, do you want to go over some of the items for the next board meeting?
Go ahead.
Because I think there's some important stuff that we have to address.
Need a motion from us to ask you to prepare that, or can you just prepare it at the request of the chair?
We've already made that
Multiple times.
Multiple times.
Yes.
Just to make sure that one more time. Okay.
I agree.
People understand that.
Especially after the circumstances.
I'll bring to the committee, the joint committee, the cashback program, criteria and amounts, various options for the board to contemplate. We will seek approval from the committee to look at debt financing or refinancing and see what is out there and what the true cost is, so we can look at that. We're going to look at contract amendments to current projects that my delegated authority doesn't allow me to take action, so it's kind of been at a lull for the last, month and a half or so. We're going to look for approval to advertise numerous projects, as I mentioned before, including bridge hab joint repairs, wrong way safety signage, CEI for these things. We have to approve interlocal agreements with Miami-Dade County and start the process again of transferring assets, like the Dolphin Park and Ride, which has been at abeyance because of all of this, so we can start moving forward. I will bring back the resolution that this board reaffirmed last year on toll rates and CPI. I will bring it to the board. We will reaffirm it once again as a board, and the board can then, strengthen it, take whatever action it needs to take at the board meeting to make to get that message across once again.
One final thing, while we were not here and during this, that period, did you start complying with some items of the legislation which said that you had to submit your financials, et cetera, to be looked at by the state?
The state auditor general has been here over the last 3 weeks. We have submitted numerous information, work program, administration, operations, contractual, procurement. We've provided every information that they've asked. They'll be back again, and they will continue that financial status report to the legislature.
Do you know when that report is going to be issued?
It is due by October 1st, according to House Bill 385.
Very good. Then, proceed. We have nothing to hide here. And I think it'll be an eye-opener for the folks up in the state.
And one other thing, Mr. Chair, if I may. For the next week, we were, pursuant to our bylaws, we were to have our elections on the 27th of June. We moved them back. I suggest now that the injunction has been lifted, that we set them for the 27th of August meeting, which is, I believe, what we had discussed then as well, to move forward.
Sure.
Thank you.
Any other business? Okay, hearing none, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Everything well?